left, right.
Hello there. Thank you for joining. This is our first episode for the year 2024, and these are our predictions for the following year. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
How's this going?
Cheers.
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 All right, we are live. Welcome to SipTalk, episode 235, predictions for the year 2024. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James, the Bosnator Boswell, philosopher, philanderer, philanthropist, a man of many PHs. James, how's it hanging down there in sunny South Carolina?
Not as nice as it was last week when I was in San Diego.
Yeah, here's a little chilly down there in South Carolina this time
Yeah,
of year.
it's chilly, but also it's just tough to beat San Diego.
Well, that's what geography. That's how geography works. So it is awfully cold here in New York. Actually, we had a wind advisory the last couple of days. Crazy wind.
Dude, I've got so many
crazy
branches
rain.
down in my yard. We
Yeah.
had gusts of like 50 and 60 mile an hour winds on like Tuesday.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that's sweeping the country.
Well, you got another one coming through.
Well, look, we got predictions for the year 2024. I don't think either one of us has mentioned extreme weather, but I definitely think the weather. Did you mention it? I just didn't read it.
I don't think so.
Okay, no. All right, good. I didn't mention extreme weather either, but I definitely think we're going to start seeing some more extreme weather. I've been seeing it over the last 5-8 years, maybe a little bit less, maybe 5-6 years. Just noticing the intensity of some of these storms a bit stronger. Before we go any further, I got to ask you what you are drinking.
Whatever I could find in my beer fridge in the garage, which apparently is Miller Lite.
Miller Lite, all right, not my favorite, but I will.
It's not my favorite either, but I also didn't buy it.
So we got to catch up a little bit, but I got to tell you that the first week of this month for 5 days straight, I did a water fast.
Yeah, you got to tell me how that went.
Which means it doesn't mean that I didn't drink soda or beer or coffee and just live normally, but drank water. I didn't eat food. I didn't eat any food at all, and I only drank water. So not even
real
coffee.
quick, Dan Dujak, general predictions or something specific? Well, it's
Well,
going
we
to be
got-
like
It's
general areas, and then we're going to get specific in those. So we're talking like, to give you guys a quick preview, we're looking at like politics, like war, technology, the
Economy.
environment, and just other trends that we think are going to either like get bigger or pop up.
Yeah, we'll get into AI. We just glossed over extreme weather, but
All right, so water fast.
let me just get this done with so we can really get into the content. But yeah, so I did a water fast for 5 days, which which was pretty wild. It wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was. I've done a juice fast before, and I actually think that was more difficult because the juice is pretty high in sugar and low in fiber, right? Because they're not blending the fruits and vegetables; they're just juicing it. So it's basically
Just
like-
sugar water.
yeah,
with
it's
some extra
sugar
flavor.
water. But the sugar really spikes your insulin and then drops it right back down. Whereas the water fast, it was pretty much even keel all day long. Every once in a while, I'd be around some very fragrant food, and it would really get me salivating a little bit, and I could feel my stomach kind of contracting. But and then there was a couple of late nights where before bed my stomach was a little sore. But realistically, for the course of the 5 days, I managed pretty well.
What are what are the purported benefits?
So one is weight loss. I didn't do it for weight loss. Had that been the primary reason I would have done it, I definitely would have weighed myself first, because people have. I only did it for 5 days, and people are saying, "Wow, you look like you lost some weight." I'm like, "You saw me 7 days ago. I look like I lost weight in 7 days." I'm like, "Yeah, man." So there's definitely the weight loss element. It also, in the immediacy, shrinks your stomach, so you're not eating big portions after that. But there's a big detoxification right? 'Cause
That's bullshit.
you're only drinking water, so you're flushing your system. So the
Yeah,
immediate
your system's constantly flushing itself. That's why you have a liver and kidneys. Anytime I hear someone say getting rid of toxins, I immediately know they're full of shit.
but no, you're getting rid of some toxins in your
No,
system.
you're not.
You're
Your
clearing out
body's
your
constantly getting rid of toxins. The
sure, but
only
you're
thing that
also
you're
no,
doing
hang on, you're
differently
right,
is
you're
you're
right.
not
Your body is
introducing more toxins
that's
to your body.
that's my point. So your body's constantly getting rid of toxins, but you're constantly delivering them. So you're giving your body a little bit of a break. You're cleaning the system out. You're flushing the system a little bit. It's good for your bowels, but also what they say is this kind of ketosis element. Your body goes into repair mode, and it's actually good for. And this is where, and we haven't done our research on this, but we really should do an episode where you and I get to do some big time digging into this. Is epigenetics, right? The aspects of your genes that do change on the fly, and basically the effectiveness of the expression of your genes. But what they say is it repairs some of your genetics. Also has a lot of anti-cancer and anti-aging
I would like to
benefits.
see the actual like peer reviewed
Well,
research on this.
this is a new science. I was really skeptical. I'm not a big person on fasting.
Yeah, like
I like to
if it's
eat.
not peer reviewed, I'm not interested in it because anybody can say anything and claim it's science.
Uh, I I've been hearing a lot more about it. I've got a stack of Scientific American freaking magazines I got to catch up on. So
Oh, real quick, Dan Dujak asked Bitcoin to 150,000. I'm like, you're dreaming. Like Bitcoin is such a stupid thing.
so we
Everything about cryptocurrency is idiotic.
um, well
Like it serves no purpose. And
we'll
it
all
wastes a
right.
tremendous amount of
Let's
resources.
let's wrap back around. So either way, so I finished the water fast, and I'm doing a dry January, and I've never done a dry January before. So this has been an interesting. Never done a dry any month for that matter.
Yeah.
So this will be an interesting month, but it's some stressful days. I'm like, damn, I'd love it. Nice
All right.
glass of
Well,
sleep.
real quick, let me ask you this: would you recommend the 5-day water fast?
The reason that I did it was for discipline. It was kind of trending. I heard some people talking about it. Somebody I've been saying this. I can't freaking remember who it was. Somebody's like, "You could never do that." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I can handle that. But I've lost a lot of discipline as I've gotten older. So the number one reason I did it was simply for the discipline. And whatever value that you find in doing the fast, uh, just the sake of being able to say that you did it.
Let me ask you this then, because I've considered doing it because I kind of want to do like a bodily reset of sorts.
That's the way
But
that I looked at it. It was a bit of a reset. It didn't
but
reset much for
how bad was like your energy level and
Well, so
everything else?
I did not exercise the entire time, so I didn't feel super fatigued. Now, when I lift weights a lot, I get like crazy hungry. So not exercising, I think, helped with some of the hunger. Next time, I think I'll do it probably drinking black coffee and doing some mid distance slow jogs. Um, but it wasn't difficult. It wasn't difficult. And then coming out of it, I had a big meal. I only had a plate of food with like lots of lettuce on it, but it actually kind of like it sat in my stomach all night long. And then the next morning, I woke up and threw up, and I felt really sick. I had soup later in the evening, and didn't even it was I didn't even eat all the stuff that was in the soup. I just kind of drank the broth.
Yeah, that would have been my next question. Is like, don't you need to kind of like gradually bring food back in?
Well, I thought eating a decent amount of salad would be good because of the fiber,
Yeah.
and then I was eating Mediterranean food, so it was not a crazy heavy food. It did not digest very well. I guess my stuff, what I eat every 3 hours or so, my digestion is kind of always moving. So I guess it just kind of ground everything to a halt, which is
Hmm.
it slows your metabolism definitely slows down. Dan asks about mental clarity. I didn't have an increase in mental clarity really at all. I definitely lost the lows, like say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I get a little sluggish. I definitely lost the harsh effects of that sluggishness, but just overall, to me, uh, I'll take the lows to experience the highs. Okay, like I don't mind being a little hungover if I get to have a fun night out. I don't mind being a little sluggish if I get to have a nice lunch and feel pretty good after lunch. Um, this was just kind of like a gray day. Nothing was great. I wasn't like the movie Limitless, where you get this brain pill, where you get this crazy mental clarity. It wasn't that great. I'll drink the coffee all day, any day, and just deal with the times when you're sluggish. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of our of our conversation. Speaking of which, though, dry January, I am drinking, and I know you don't like the stuff. I'm drinking milk. So that's my drink of choice for the podcast. This is a whole milk from Stewart's, the upstate New York favorite.
Man, I miss Stewart's.
Stewart's is a great little convenience store / gas station. So where should we start talking about 2024? I actually mislabeled this
Probably
prediction.
where, like, I think there are some things that we both talked about, and like when you were writing up your section and I was writing up mine, there's some overlap. I think we should start there, which basically is Trump.
Okay, so I was in the middle of saying I actually titled this predictions for 2023. I feel like that would have been an easier
Yeah. When I saw that,
topic to discuss.
yeah, I saw that. I was like, man, this is going to be an easy cast.
And there's a question here on Instagram. How was your sleep? During the water fast, I slept fine. I was more tired, so I slept a little deeper. So Trump, I think there's a pretty high probability that he will win the election if he's allowed to run fairly. And I don't necessarily know that it would be unfair if he was banned from running, but
Well, I mean, we should talk about that. We should say, like, first of all, like, I think there's two scenarios that you need to analyze. Like, scenario one is, like, with all the different court cases that he has right now. So
well,
he's
let's
got
go to
this.
the simple scenario first.
Well, hold on. This is the simple scenario. Is all of those court cases, like, going into the November election, we need to assume either haven't gone to trial or he's been found not guilty. Where basically he doesn't have a
So none of these are
criminal
done.
conviction on his record going into the November election.
I thought
That's the
you were
simple
going
scenario.
other direction. Yeah, so there's no criminal conviction. He's allowed to run.
Well, and the other part of the simple one is that, like, he's able to win in the Supreme Court regarding the 14th Amendment challenges.
Which are what?
So the 14th Amendment challenges are Section 3 of the 14th Amendment bars anybody from who participated in an insurrection from holding public office. And so a couple states, notably Colorado, have found that the 14th Amendment Section 3 applies to Trump and have removed him from the ballot. And so
Which is not going to that he will stay off the ballot until it makes it to the Supreme Court.
I believe they might stay their, like, order on this, like, until the appeal is done. But basically, this is a case that really does need to go to the Supreme Court, because if you have one state doing one thing and another state doing another thing, like, that's one of the reasons for the Supreme Court to exist, is to rectify issues between the
Well,
states.
and to have a fair nationwide election, I think that needs to happen sooner.
Well, and
rather
that's the
than
other
later.
thing is, like, if you're going to have some states that bar Trump from the ballot and other states that don't, then that does actually bring up some questions about election fairness. And I think the Supreme Court, and regardless of which direction the Supreme Court rules, like, if the Supreme Court says, yes, it does apply, or no, it doesn't, I do think that each state needs to treat Trump the same way in regards to ballot eligibility. And
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I agree for us to have a fair nationwide election. So,
well, and also it's the perception of fairness, because if Trump is kept off the ballot in, let's say, 5 or 6 states, then like, even if the election results are legitimate and he loses by more than the margin of those 5 or 6 states, he's still going to complain that he was treated unfairly, and a lot of people are going to agree with him.
well, and this is look. I don't want Trump to be president again. I don't really want Biden to be president again either. But the biggest issue I have with Trump is his divisiveness for our country. and we are already there again going into 2024. So he hasn't even become the president.
Yeah.
We're 10 months out from this,
Well,
and
so let's talk
it's
about
already something divisive.
let's talk about the simple scenario. He is not subject to any successful 14th Amendment challenges, and he has not been convicted of any of the charges against him in the various trials that are going on. That's the simple election scenario, and it's going to be Trump versus Biden.
Exactly. I
So
think, and prediction wise, I think that's an easy win for him.
I disagree.
But everybody disagreed in 2016.
Yeah, there's a couple big differences between this year and 2016. One is the Democrats were really complacent in 2016.
But you thinking that Biden's just going to win in 2024, I think is very is
No. There's a difference because in 2016, it just felt like we don't really need to do anything. People can see on its face that Trump is an absurd person. No, like no one's seriously going to think about electing him. And then it happened, and it was like, oh shit. And then
not
the
everyone, the Democrats, which were roughly 50% of everyone.
yeah, all right, fine, but
And I think what you're not
actually no.
accounting for, though,
You know
what
what?
you're not
If you there,
accounting for, listen, is the split in the Democratic Party. And the split in the Democratic Party is the woke liberals versus the traditional liberals.
actually, no, I'm going to stand by my holy shit statement because there's a picture of Trump on election night when like it came back that it was like clear that he was going to win, and he just looks like completely terrified because
I think I know exactly.
and also
Yeah, I
and
think I know
yeah, it's
exactly what
like
you're saying.
I think the Republicans thought they were going to lose because of all the reasons why they should have. I think the Republicans were just as surprised as the Democrats were that Trump won, that just their emotional reaction to the surprise was different than the Democrats, but I think the surprise was equal. So I'm going to stand by the holy shit, we can't believe he won. Um and
Um,
so hold on,
sorry, go ahead.
let me throw out reason number 1 why I don't think 2016 is the same as 2024 is I don't think that the Democrats are complacent. I think that they recognize that Trump is a very real threat to win, and they are going to be campaigning hard wherever they can to try and get as many people out to vote. I don't think that it's just kind of a this guy's a joker, we're not going to take him seriously, so we don't need to campaign that hard. No one's actually going to, like, when it comes time to it, people aren't going to vote for him. That threat, the threat of complacency just doesn't exist this year. Like, the Democrats know what the stakes are. That's point 1. Point 2 is even since like 2020, you've had millions of people become eligible to vote. And you've also had
Millions of
millions,
young people, millions of young
yes,
people.
millions of young people eligible to vote, and at the same time, millions of old people die. And if you look at the trends, older people tended to vote more heavily in favor of Trump, and younger people tended to vote heavily in favor of Biden. And so the demographics are very much on the Democrats' side. Now, what the Democrats need to do is get those people to actually come out and vote. And my belief is that they will, because I think that Gen Z is severely pissed off.
I just don't see that swinging the election. But we can disagree with our predictions. Our predictions are predictions and opinion. I think there's a very high probability he would win. Let's move on because we already lost 80% of the audience talking about politics. But let's stay on
And I've
politics.
had a
Let's
couple.
stay on politics. Yeah, I know you do. Let's stay on politics and say that that the second scenario that Trump is not allowed to run.
Dan Jujek says, "Can we pass a new amendment for an age maximum?" So, like, there's an age minimum to be a president, and he's recommending an age maximum. I think there's some popular support for that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think an age. I mean, as humans are aging longer, you'd make an argument against it. I'm
Well,
just trying to play devil's advocate and present both sides of this. But I would say, if not an age cap, maybe some type of test.
yeah, because that, like, my only objection with that is that, like, you can take two people that are both 70 years old, and they will
Put them
present
side
very
by side.
differently.
One can run marathons, yeah,
Yeah.
and the other one can't stand up, and not that the one that can't stand up is not even that unhealthy. It's
Right, but
the
you could also and just on a mental aptitude, you
but
can have
then
some 70-year-olds that are still college professors doing high level academic work, and you can have other 70-year-olds that can't put together a sentence.
I was
So
I was just so, and we're gonna fucking lose track here, go off on tangents. I heard this crazy story about this Italian guy who moved to the United States. I don't know, in his 20s or 30s or something. This is somebody's grandfather. They're telling a story, and he lived with his family and never really learned English. So he could he only spoke Italian, so he could do basic communications like hello. He would say good morning, but didn't even know what it meant. But he mostly just got around, day to day. The problem was his family and everybody around him didn't speak Italian. So now in his old age, he doesn't remember any Italian because he hasn't spoken it in 50 years, but he's never learned English. So the guy literally has no language. He can't write in English. He can't write in Italian. Imagine that, how much time that goes by where you're just not communicative, just getting by. And you realize, or probably the people around you realize first, that you actually have no grasp on communication and language. You're obviously communicating in other ways, body language and things like
yeah,
that.
but I mean that's just a huge failure on a number of fronts.
I completely agree. Okay, so let's get back to scenario 2. I'll let you introduce
All
it.
right. So scenario 2 is, let's imagine one of the following things happen. Because I think any one of these happening they're all kind of equivalent. So scenario 2 is Trump wins enough primary votes to become the RNC candidate, right?
Okay.
And once he's the RNC candidate, either the Mar-a-Lago documents case, the January 6th election interference case, or the Georgia election interference case, or the 14th Amendment challenges are successful in that Trump is convicted on one or more of those charges, or the Supreme Court rules that the 14th Amendment section 3 applies to Trump. So now the RNC has a candidate that is either a convicted felon or barred from being on the ballots. So it can't be Trump as the candidate, even though that's what the primary suggested. So
Mhm.
right now, the other two possible candidates are either Haley or DeSantis. I
Yeah,
think that their odds against Biden are much higher
I
than
completely
Trump's.
agree. I completely agree. I think so. If you want my overall prediction, which may not be in line with yours overall, but you may see this as 50%, whereas I see it more as 75 or 80%, that we're going to have a Republican president come 2025.
Here's where I put the odds. I put the odds of us having a Democratic president at about 45%. Now, of that 55% Republican president, I put it at about 50-50, so I guess 27.5% each, that it's
Yeah.
either Trump or DeSantis/Haley.
And of the 27.5%, what which way are you leaning for DeSantis and how much for Haley?
Probably about 70-30 split in favor of Haley.
No, that's because you're from South Carolina.
No. I think that DeSantis has made a case for how off-putting he is to the national audience, whereas Haley, while she doesn't really stand for anything, she has a more polished appearance, a more charming demeanor, and a better delivery. And I think that like I think that Haley is the more electable of the two. She has made far fewer enemies than DeSantis has, and that matters.
I'll buy it, and also on a public platform, she didn't spar with Disney, so
Well, DeSantis has picked Disney's the high profile one, but he's picked so many other
yeah, true.
small little petty fights just
But
to.
we need to
All right, so
we
real
gotta
quick,
move on here because we need to move on. But
I will say that I think the chances that Trump is convicted in one of these cases, either the documents case, the interference case, or the Georgia interference case, before the general election, I'm going to put those odds at about 70 to 80%.
Well,
I think that'll happen because the documents case is so open and shut in terms of the facts that the only reason he doesn't get convicted is if he's able to successfully delay that trial until after the election. The January 6th federal trial is the charges are a little bit more nebulous, so he has a lower chance of being convicted, but he has a much higher chance of going to trial before the election. And I think that the witness testimony against him in that trial is going to be really, really strong. And then the Georgia election case could get delayed due to the fact that he's in federal court for a whole bunch of things, and Georgia's like, yeah, we'll let him go to federal court first and we'll deal with him later. And then there's also a really interesting question of what happens if he gets elected to be president and then has to go to Georgia to deal with the state level trial and gets convicted. So you have a president that is a felon at the state level. I don't know the answer to that one.
he'd probably see if he could pardon himself. All right, we got to move
But
on.
you can't
We
pardon
literally
yourself for state charges.
we
Pardons only work from the federal level.
we have lost 90% of our initial viewers. So let's.
Oh,
we're
all right.
not going to get them back because they're not going to hear us transition here. That's unfortunate. But for those
This
of
is
you who are
what I
still
like talking
listening,
about, though.
where should we go? Should we talk? Let's talk about war because we both had war on the mind, thinking of 2024. Now, my thinking on Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, and Russia is that these wars are going to continue to wage on. It's not going to get any better. I don't think it's going to get much worse. But what a lot of people, especially our generation and younger, haven't really witnessed real war, right? What happened when we were younger during Bush, that didn't really feel like much of a war for us.
Well, it was really distant,
But also they weren't bombing like hospitals in Afghanistan.
yeah, they were.
Well, not that it was in our face all the time. Now you see this happening in Palestine, and it's in our face all the time. But we didn't have social media back then. You had to hear it on the news or see it in the newspaper. Now we're seeing a lot more of this in our face. But what a lot of people don't think about when it comes to war is that many wars go on for years and years and years, some decades and decades long. So I don't think this is going to go on for decades and decades, but I don't see it settling that soon. And I think Ukraine and Russia and what's going on in Palestine, I don't see that changing. I don't see that changing anytime in the next couple of months. So I don't think stretching that even a few months more, we're going to see that drastic of a change. That's my opinion. That's my
All right,
opinion.
so Ukraine and Russia is largely a war of attrition at this point. And it's really how much funding does the West continue to funnel into Ukraine to give them weapon systems and ammunition, etc., to keep their like army going? And on the Russian side, it's how much are Russians willing to suffer under these sanctions and crappy life and everything because of like the way that the world is treating them, and how long will Putin survive? Because I think once Putin dies, Russia leaves the war. Like this is
I
Putin's war.
completely agree. But
And so,
but the thing is, the war is when you said a war of attrition, that's really what's happening, and that's why I don't think it's going to change that much because I feel like it's been going on long enough that it's just at this point just kind of on life support, self-sustaining.
well,
in Ukraine and Russia. Now that's a little
the
separate.
thing that is going to change the war in Ukraine and Russia is if Ukraine loses significant amount of international aid,
Support,
then
yeah.
Ukraine's going to start losing. And on the other side, it'll be if Putin dies or enough of the oligarchs get sick of his crap and say we're going to get rid of you, which you would think would have happened by now if it was going to
Yeah,
happen.
but he has a lot of support in that country.
He does.
He's losing
And
it.
so I don't think that the Western support for Ukraine is going to stop anytime soon, and I don't think that Putin's going to die anytime soon. So I predict that that's going to continue to be largely a stalemate.
All right, what do you think over in Palestine?
It's a much smaller area. It's a much smaller war. They're fighting over less ground. They're fighting over less people, and Israel has Israel has a more organized army than Ukraine, and they have similar levels of international backing. And so the question is really, how far does Israel want to go before they claim victory?
Yeah, I will buy that, and I think that's really the big question is how much damage do they want to do? But optics wise, it's not a good look. But I don't see I don't see either side backing down.
No, and unfortunately, the people that are going to be suffering are primarily Palestinians, with with some Israelis also suffering as well. And you're going to have, I think that Netanyahu loses his job over this because, like, the attack on Israel on 10/6 was a pretty big failure at multiple levels of government, and I think the voters are going to hold Netanyahu accountable, which
I agree
him
with you.
going, I think, would overall be a good thing for Israel. So.
All right. Now you got Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Iran.
Yeah, so Saudi Arabia and Iran hate each other, and they've got these Houthi rebels that are supported by Iran trying to overthrow the Yemeni government. And so Iran's supporting them, and Saudi Arabia is fighting on the side of Yemen. And it all comes down to like the Shiite versus Sunni split in the
Hmm.
Islamic faith. And I think that's another one that's just going to continue to be a stalemate because, like, the Houthis aren't funded enough to make a big impact, and they also just don't have enough people. But like the Saudis are basically throwing only enough resources at it to just like keep it at bay. They don't really care about completely quashing it, I feel like. And also, Yemen as a country doesn't have like enough economic or international clout for the larger world to really care. I
Well,
think the world's kind of looking at it as like, this is Saudi Arabia and Iran fighting, and us getting involved, whichever country you're talking about. The us is like any random country. Just like, why would we get involved in this? How does it benefit us to basically pick a fight with Saudi Arabia and or Iran?
all right. Next country. Next country. We gotta
Oh,
we gotta we
North
gotta move on.
Korea, because everyone likes to talk about North Korea doing something, and North Korea is not going to do anything. They're going to continue to bloviate,
No one
and
no one really likes North Korea, so for them to attack somebody else, uh, and that's not entirely true, but it's generally true. They don't have a lot of friends, so
well,
for them to do anything crazy, I don't think it's going to
you know
go
what's really
very well
interesting
back
though?
on them.
There's two things going on in North Korea that a lot of people I don't think people think about it this way. One, there are two countries that actually would like to keep North Korea the way it is. One much more so than the other. But
And who are they?
China and South Korea, because imagine the regime in North Korea falls. You're going to have however many millions of North Koreans that are propagandized, brainwashed, undereducated, malnourished, with limited to no practical modern skills that now need to go somewhere and be taken care of.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a massive humanitarian crisis that would have to be funded primarily by China and or South Korea.
All right.
And both countries don't want to have to deal with that.
Next up, China and Taiwan. You don't think you don't see China invading Taiwan?
Nope.
I think also Taiwan is going to have a lot of international support. Um,
Taiwan will have way more international support than Ukraine did.
so, well, yeah, yeah. Taiwan exports a lot more than Ukraine does.
Yeah,
Uh,
Taiwan. There's a certain quality of microchips that are only manufactured in Taiwan, and those are the highest quality ones. Like for super high end computing purposes, the chips that you need are only made in one place, and that is Taiwan. So every country and every business that has a vested interest in being able to have access to the best computer chips on the planet is going to want to protect Taiwan.
all right, after we gotta move on, but don't let me forget afterwards. I want to talk to you about a video game emulator. Not that I know anything about video games. This is why I need your opinion. Before we move on to technology, man, we have been stuck in war, international politics for
Oh, real quick, I want to hit
ah,
Dan.
yeah, yeah. We're not going to. Sorry, Dan. We got to hit the bar trivia because we got a lot more to cover. We haven't even hit bar trivia. Do you remember my question from last episode?
Sure don't.
Okay, Dan Manley was revisiting his hometown when an old friend called, "Hey, Dan, how have you been? It must have been 15 years since we saw each other last." "At least that," replied Dan. "I've been keeping well, but tell me about yourself." Dan's friend answered, "I'm married now, but to someone you wouldn't know. By the way, this is my daughter." Dan looked down at the little girl and asked her name, and she said, "It's the same as my mother's." The little girl replied, uh, "Oh shit, sorry, I'm bad at reading this." Dan looked down at the little girl and asked her name. She said, "It's the same as my mother's." Dan then said, "I bet I know your name is Susan, isn't it?" How could Dan have known this? Dan Manley revisiting his hometown,
Yeah, no, we already heard the
ran
question.
into
What's
his
the answer?
friend, ran into his friend, said, "It must have been so long since I've seen you.
We've
I'm
already
married
heard the.
now, but to someone you wouldn't know." How did Dan know that this little girl's name was Susan if she was named after her mother?
I don't know.
Dan's friend was the mother of the young girl.
Oh,
Dan's friend Susan was the mother of the young girl. Man, this one took me a while. This one took me a while to get to, but a really simple answer. We'll follow up at the end of this episode with our next bar trivia question. But back to our predictions for the year 2024. Should we get into technology?
yeah.
All right, go for it.
My first one. I think that AI continues to get news headlines and disrupt in kind of small ways, but I don't think it's going to make any major headway this year because people are still very reluctant to accept automation in their daily lives.
Well, yeah, I will buy that. People don't even like having products suggested to them on Amazon. They turn off all the tracking things, so it's difficult to have things automated if you don't want anybody tracking you. Uh, but yeah, I don't think we're going to see any crazy things happening with AI. I don't think we're going to have some humanoid robots take over. I think we are maybe a decade or two away from that even being in the realm of possibility. But you remember when the internet hit the scene? Right? And at first, people like didn't even think it would catch on. Right? I don't think that's how AI works. I'm asking you. People were like, "Oh, it's not going to last." I think everybody this time around, a new technology kind of hitting the scene. Everybody's like, "Man, this is actually going to catch on." Like we fucked up with the internet. This is kind of the next big thing. This is going to be something. But in my notes here, and I've mentioned this before to you. Even my toaster has Wi-Fi. My
Yeah, which is
oven
just that's so stupid.
but point is, it's everywhere. My oven shares recipes and weather related recipes, and my oven, the screen on my oven shares the current weather. You
Hey,
don't need that, but the internet is just integrated into everything.
hang on, real quick. Dan wants to talk about economics, CPI rate cuts, and
Are
liquidity.
we not? Are we not going to get there?
We are, but he says he's going to be leaving.
Okay, he'll have to catch the episode.
I guess we'll have to. Yeah, you catch
Sorry,
it on
Dan.
YouTube, Dan.
I think it's great that James answering you, and I appreciate the comments. But
Also, Sasha's criticizing your choice of drinking whole milk straight, like that you might be a
it
sociopath.
is
And it actually makes me think like if you see in movies somebody drinking just plain whole milk, they're one of two things. They're either like mentally challenged or a villain.
no, yeah. If somebody's drinking plain whole milk in a movie, they're definitely a villain.
Or
That's
mentally challenged. So
or they could be a little special. But
yeah, you pick which one you are.
yeah, no, I'm gonna go with sociopathic. I don't know what to drink if I'm not drinking beer. Yeah, I don't people who don't drink alcohol. What do they drink? Like fruit juice? That seems a little silly to me. They just drink
Tea.
water, or they drink water all the time. I had tea today. I drank so much tea. It's really boring. I have a beer in the refrigerator in my office. There's a bottle of wine. People gifted me all these bottles of liquor over the holidays. They're just cluttering up my desk.
Yeah,
And
you're gonna have a massive hangover on February 2nd.
I told you what happened when I broke the fast after the water fast. I didn't even eat that much food, and I couldn't even digest it. So, but I went in easy. I thought I was going in easy, so I'm going to have to obviously go in easy with the drinking after taking a month off. But we talked about the health benefits of we're losing our train of thought here. We're talking about the health benefits of the water fast. They say that your liver can fully regenerate in 30 days providing it's not damaged to the point of no return. So unless you have like fatty liver disease or cirrhosis of the liver, if your liver is pretty beat up, it can do a full recovery in 30 days. So they say that, once a year or so, you should take a month off from drinking. So I may incorporate that as I get into middle age here.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know how your liver feels in 20 more days.
It's gonna feel great. So yeah, but back to AI. I think unlike the internet, people are more scared of it, but I don't think we're going to see anything crazy happen. I do think that AI though is going to within itself continue to have major advances because the growth of AI, the way that it learns, is accelerating.
Yeah, but the question I have is, what impact does that really have for most people? Because I just don't see it really affecting products or services all that
Well,
much.
and that's where I see the correlation to the internet. In the early days of the internet, people were thinking, I don't really see how that's going to catch on. You can send people digital mails. You send it. How does that? You're going to send them a mail digitally? People are going to want to do that. That seems really silly. People want to read the newspaper on their computer screen. What, that doesn't seem like something that's going to catch on. Right. And now literally the internet has put most newspaper and magazine publications
Well,
out of
yeah, I
business.
think the difference
So
is that
no, here's my point though, is I think we're very short-sighted on this because we're looking into the future from the perspective of today. And the same way, if you look at a movie made in the 80s, and they look into the future. So say you look at a futuristic car in a 1980s movie, what does it have? It has a bunch of CRT screens built into the dashboard. Okay, they're saying the year 2000 that a car is going to have screens in it, and they're using these these bubble CRT screens within the
yeah.
car. That's looking at the future through the lens of today, and now you get in a car, and it has screens, or it has all these things that illuminate, and it's nothing like you could have imagined 30, 40 years ago. So I
Let me
think
ask you this,
we don't have the right lens on the
or
future.
let me pose. Here's why I see AI and the internet differently. And
Well, they
so,
are different. They
yeah,
are
but let me
different.
let
I'm
me
just
ask you
saying
this.
the predictions that we're making, I
Right,
think
but
it's
let,
going to
let,
be
let
everywhere.
me
Go
give
ahead.
you the basis for it, and I'm going to do it
Go
in the
ahead.
form of a question. What did the internet displace?
A whole lot of things.
Yes, but if you think about it, the internet displaced a lot of the things that we had to do in person or with physical things, right?
Mhm.
What is AI displacing?
Human uniqueness,
Okay.
painting, writing articles, thinking,
So,
right? A lot less thinking.
yeah.
And since
So,
we don't do things
right.
in person anymore,
Right, but here follow me on this one because I think people saying I can read my newspaper on a screen instead of having a physical piece of paper in front of me is much less of a leap than I'm going to make a decision versus I'm going to trust something that I don't even understand to make a decision for me. I think
okay.
that that's a
But I
much
could
bigger ask.
produce an entire newspaper publication in 11 seconds using AI and push that out to the masses should they choose to use it.
Yeah, and it's going to
So
suck.
you've literally, it may not suck, right? So so speaking of lawsuits, the lawsuit the New York Times has against OpenAI, saying that OpenAI is scraping their data from behind the paywall and sharing it. What do you think about that?
I need to read it.
So basically, what they're saying is OpenAI is taking our paid data and sharing it for free. Now, my thinking on that
It's
is
a
I
question
could
of
read
plagiarism.
well the plagiaristic aspect is I think the bigger issue. But what my point is if I read a paid New York Times article and then went on this podcast and talked about it, would that be any different than AI talking about it? Now that's where it gets into plagiarism. It's phrasing, it's direct copying,
Well,
it's lack of independent thought,
let
right?
me think let me put it to you this way. In like it's a question of scale because one person doing something one or two times is different than making a business model off of it. So, if you've ever been to the city of Valencia in Spain, they've got a park that runs through the city that's an old dried up riverbed. And what they did is they made a park that goes through it with like a whole bunch of like plants and like playgrounds and all sorts of stuff. And one of the things that they did is along the walkway that goes through it, there's orange trees, hundreds of them. Like for however many miles this park goes on, there's an orange
I
tree every
wasn't sure
10 or
where you were
15
going
feet.
with this, but I think I may now know where you're going with this. Either way, go ahead.
So if you're walking through this park and you reach up and you pick one orange off
You
of the tree,
you are allowed to do so,
yeah,
if not encouraged to do so.
maybe, I don't know. But even if like
That's what they were there for.
yeah, but even if it's not allowed, like I don't think a police officer like if you pick one off and a police officer sees you, even if it is a crime, they're probably gonna be like, "Hey, you can't do that. Don't do that again." But even if it is allowed, like one person picking off an orange versus now you found a company and you have a whole team of workers going through the park and
Exactly, yeah.
picking off every single one of the orange and then selling at a market later. Like the city's gonna have a problem. You're taking advantage of something in a way that it wasn't meant to be used.
Yeah,
And that's the argument.
yeah, and I think what's going to happen is our courts are going to have to really look at this, because if you don't allow AI to access this data, then you're really cutting AI off at the kneecaps
Yeah, and
and
so
really cutting it down. So
but what if you were to say, "Hey, if you're going to be doing large scale data harvesting on our service, we're going to charge you differently than if you're just an individual user looking to read our articles."
I think that's reasonable as well, that a company should pay more than an individual anyways to access something. So
And I can think of countless examples of where
I like
like
I like
industrial pricing differs from consumer pricing because the intended use of it is different.
yeah, I like the orange analogy. Where else are we on technology?
Self-driving cars.
Not a thing in 2024.
The
Not
technology still sucks and
uh,
people just aren't going to trust them. Like
people are
you
too
can see
human drivers are too highly variable. That's the
well,
biggest
human
issue.
drivers are too highly variable, but even if you were to replace every single human driver on the road with an AI driver and have all cars be AI, it would still suck because there are environmental factors that you cannot control that we just have not programmed for yet. And cars are just too difficult and traffic is too difficult to manage to have a program that's going to be able to respond to all these things that can go wrong. And
Like a big puddle.
yeah, like a big puddle, or like
Because by the
I
way,
love the
I
videos of San
program
Francisco where like people put like parking cones on the hoods of these self-driving cars, and like they just
they can't do anything. But I
yeah
mean, yeah, like imagine trying to program for a puddle, right? A self-driving car is not going to know how deep it is. You're never going to be able to program the size of a puddle, right? Because or the shape of a puddle, because it's all highly variable. Um,
yeah, but like what about wildlife and
well,
like
but that's a wildlife is the same as it's worse than another human driver who could just veer off the side of the road or swerve or answer the cell phone and hit the brake or something
yeah.
like that. Wildlife going sprinting across the road is just as variable. The variables are what are the unforeseeable variables are what are working against self-driving cars, even in an environment where every vehicle is self-driving, like you just said.
Yeah, there's just so much more work to be done, and I can tell you that like especially in the cities where they've been running these trials, the public trust for self-driving cars, like like, the
Continues
places where
to
they've been using
continues to
self-driving
drop.
cars, the public there has a lower opinion of self-driving cars than the places where they haven't been tested.
Exactly. All right, hit streaming services.
Um, yeah, so I think streaming services are going to be suffering from a similar fate that cable TV did, and yeah, cable TV did like 20 years ago, which is like there was too much competition and like streaming services diluted the market so far that it used to be that like 10 years ago or 5 years ago you could probably be good with like two streaming services, Netflix and Hulu, right?
Not even. Yeah.
And
Yeah, Netflix basically.
yeah,
Netflix, and then you had cable.
yeah. Whereas now, like all the content that you could have gotten with one or two logins and one or two monthly subscriptions is now like what, 15?
It's spread across so many different
And
platforms.
so you're like, oh,
They're
where's the
doing
show that
they're
I want
doing
to
to
watch?
themselves what they did to cable, is what you're
Huh?
saying. They're doing to themselves. So if you go to MTV right now, the only thing it shows, I think almost 24/7, is just what's his name, Rob, whatever, ridiculousness. It just plays that over and over and over and over again on repeat. So what's
so
going to happen is you're going to have a platform like Netflix that just plays like their Netflix is Game of Thrones or something, right?
all right,
Just
so well,
or
hear
I
me
think
out
they're
on this.
HBO, but
So streaming services are expensive to run because one, you have to license the content and you have to pay royalties to whoever made that content. And then you've got huge server farms that need to manage all the internet traffic and data that people are streaming from you, right? That is not cheap. And you need a certain level of subscription to all these services to even just break even. And so, as more and more people get sick of having to manage all these different logins and subscriptions and everything, they're just going to say, you know what, screw it. It's no longer worth it. And so, you're going to have the big players. And again, that's going to be like Netflix and Hulu primarily, but like maybe Disney Plus. Um, they're going to be fine because they have enough content and enough user base to sustain this.
well,
But
also
you're
the
going to have,
difference. Sorry to interrupt you. The difference between cable and streaming services: a cable channel like MTV can only play one thing at a time, whereas a streaming service can play
yeah, but
multiple.
I think you're going to see a lot of these smaller streaming services go under, and that content that they had kind of reserved for themselves is going to go back up for grabs, and you're going to see the bigger players say, you know what, we'll pay to license that. So I think you're going to see consolidate, like a reconsolidation of the streaming
You
services.
think you're going to see it as soon as 2024?
I think you're going to start seeing what, like, yeah, you're going to start seeing it a little bit. I don't think it's going to be like complete by the end of 2024, but you're going to see it move in that direction.
I don't think we're going to see any new streaming services.
No, 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 no. I
Uh,
think, but the other thing is, I think that you're also going to see an increase in piracy as people get sick of these streaming services. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to download this illegally. And I'll tell you, like, I've
if
got a
they know
smart TV
how.
in my
It's
garage.
been a long. It's been a long time since people knew how to pirate things.
Yeah, but I'll tell
I
you,
know you have not forgotten, but sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
tell you, I've got a smart TV in my garage, and we've got logins for various streaming services to watch live sports or whatever. And I would say a significant portion of the time, and some are better than others. Like we can't watch something that like we're paying for because the apps on the TV or whatever like just don't work. So like we'll try and log in and it doesn't work. We can't watch it. And it ends up being easier for me to plug in my laptop with an HDMI cord and find some kind of bootleg stream of the game that I want to watch, and that works better than the paid streaming service. And like if you know anything about video games, you know about the service Steam, where
I don't know
it's
anything about that.
it's a content manager. You buy games on it, you download the games through it, you play the games through it, and the company that manages it is Valve, and the founder of Valve is Gabe Newell, and he was talking many years ago. He was going to be rolling Steam out to Russia, and someone asked him, "Why would you bring this service to Russia? There's a lot of piracy and theft in Russia." And he just said, "Piracy is a customer service issue. If we can provide a better service than the pirates, people will pay for it. People will only pirate when the existing service sucks."
Or cost too much money.
Yeah,
Uh,
and so
on
when he was right. Like Steam was wildly successful in Russia, and Steam just prints money now because they provide a better service than downloading a game illegally.
on streaming services, slight transition is to subscription services. And what I think we are going to see is a lot of things being given to us where the ownership aspect is removed.
You're seeing this
Right.
with cars.
Well, I was going to say we've seen it happening with music for a long time, right? Music is digital. I don't own any of the music anymore. I don't pay per song that I want to download. I pay a monthly fee and I get the downloads. Now, if I ever give up that platform and stop paying the monthly fee, the music evaporates from whatever device I have it on. You
Hmm.
no longer you don't own it digitally, and obviously you don't have records, tapes, and CDs, so you don't own it physically. But we're going to see that infiltrate other aspects of your life more so and more so by force. So cars, for example, a lot of the new cars, they come equipped with cruise control, power seats, moonroof,
Heated seats.
heated seats. But in the newest vehicles, you have to pay a subscription service to unlock those features.
Yeah,
We,
BMW is getting a lot of hate for like charging people like $18 a month to have
so,
heated seats.
but we're going to see the rentification sweep across the United States. We're already seeing these big BlackRock, Blackstone companies that are buying up real estate and forcing people to rent. We're seeing a lot of these very powerful, very wealthy corporations offer what we used to own back to us at a rental rate. So they have a regular revenue because we have to have these things. So I think we're going to see that rental aspect, the rentification, infiltrate. Like nobody would have thought you'd have to fucking rent cruise control for your car. You have to rent heated seats for your car. That's insane.
I would never buy a car that has that kind of crap in it.
But I may never buy. I may be at a good point in my life where I can always buy cars kind of pre 2020. I think, but in 50 years, I could drive a 50 something year old car and still get by. Like I'd be totally happy driving a 1960s anything if it was well maintained. So
yeah, good luck getting gas in 50 years.
Well, yeah, that's my point. Is a 20? If I have an electric vehicle, maybe, or I get a gas vehicle now with an electric conversion 30 years from now, maybe it'll be in a decent enough technology.
Yeah. Real quick, let's talk like the economy and like housing market and interest rates and stuff. Just real quick, like a minute or two.
And then you got your bar trivia, and we're going to miss antibiotics, medical breakthroughs.
Maybe we need to continue this episode next week.
We'll see. Either way, I'm curious what you got for the economy. We haven't even talked really about the environment. But go ahead, economy, and then hit your.
I think inflation is going to start coming under control. I think we're going to see interest rates drop, but I don't think that you're going to see housing prices move appreciably down. And the reason is you've got so many people that want to buy houses and so few people want to sell. And I just don't think that the inventory is there. So you still have a constrained supply and high demand.
Yeah, well, the inventory is not there, and for the people to sell their houses, they need somewhere else to move. And the problem is the prices have gone up so much in the last 4 years that it's more expensive for them to sell and move. Even though they will make a profit, it still right now is not justifying buying another place unless they're making a massive downsize. So I don't think we're going to see any major real estate moves. And
no, I do think that interest rates are going to come down, so you're going to see more people refinancing. You'll see a little bit more purchasing just because more people can qualify for mortgages and stuff. But the price side of houses,
but a point or two on interest rates is not going to shift the market that much. So good point. I like that prediction. All right, you want to hit us with a trivia here?
All right, there is at least one word that is 9 letters that only has one vowel. So give me a word that has 9 letters and one vowel.
All right. Well, I can't give it to you today. I'm telling you guys, do not Google this, but feel free to DM me or text me what you believe to be the answer to this week's bar trivia. You want to repeat it one more time?
Name a word that has 9 letters, but only one of them is a vowel.
All right. On that note, this has been SipTalk episode 235. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tune in next week. Same bat channel, same bat time, same bat duo. Am I missing anything? All right. Adios. All right. So we spoke them. We recorded them. We posted them online. These are our predictions. Circle back in a year. Let me know if I'm right or wrong. See you next time.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.